So Jaime Ospina, how you doing, man?
Doing great. I just like came from the rehearsal of the release party that is gonna be on May 24th.
Nice. Tell me about it. What's going on?
No, we just like got together a big part of the musicians that are gonna be that record the album, and we were just like putting, revisiting the songs and getting them ready for the show on Continental Club. Continental Club, May 24th.
Fantastic. That sounds exciting. So it's going to be, where's that, at the Continental Club?
Continental Club, South Congress, Austin, Texas.
Oh, nice, nice. Hey, so tell me, Austin, Texas. I've been there more than a handful of times. Is the music scene as good as it looks when I'm passing through? Is it that good?
It's good, but it's definitely been um it has suffered through the last years uh with pandemic, and the town is changing. It used to be a music town, but now it's more like a tech town. It's turning more into like a tech town. So there are venues that are closing, there are musicians that are leaving the city. So a lot of people that I know that had been in Austin for 20, 25 years, they tell me that
Mm-hmm.
definitely it's getting harder and harder to make a living as musicians in Austin. But at the same time, there's like a huge trend right now. There's like a huge revival of Latin American music and word music, and there's like a lot of things happening with non-conventional music, understanding conventional in Austin, like like the country and blues and Tejano music. So a lot of people is nostalgic about the past, but I was talking with a friend from a band, great band that I strongly recommend, that is called The Point.
Mm-hmm.
He's a drummer and he's been for several years in Austin. He's from France, but he moved to Austin some 25 years ago. And he was telling me that, like, for what we're doing, it's like the best time to be in Austin. So, you know,
Nice.
the city is just changing, definitely. But it's still, vibrant, and the community of musicians in this city is absolutely amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, every time I've been there, Sixth Street and just the whole vibe of Austin is just so cool. Great music, great food, and I'm glad to hear that. Even though it's changing, it's got more of a tech feel because I know that Texas is pulling a lot of Californians and people from all over the world. But the music scene is still there and vibrant. It just might be changing to more, more like a worldly music instead of, the blues genre that it's probably known for, right?
Blues and country, that's what Austin was for years. Blues and country, pretty much. But it's now it's a way more
Hmm.
international town, and it's people, there's people from Africa moving, there's people from India, from China, from Latin America, from Colombia, from Venezuela, from there's a really amazing spot in Austin. Actually, we just rehearsed there, that is called the Sahara Lounge, and that's where every band that comes from the world pretty much plays whenever they come to Austin.
Wow, that is awesome. So that's great. That scene is building, and that's really great. So take me to the beginning. You were originally from Colombia, right?
Born and raised in Bogotá, yes.
What age were you when you first had that connection to music that was deep? It wasn't just like passing by, but it was like, wow, this music is amazing, and it was changing you.
Well, my parents are huge music fans, so there was like music in the background all the time growing up. More of like the European, classical music tradition, but still great music. And I start whistling when I was 3 years old, and that was like
Nice.
my instrument for years. Then I start playing a little bit of recorder. Um, But then I kind of like stopped making music. I was always you know. I was always listening to my favorite rock bands and learning the guitar solos, whistling them. It's funny.
Oh wow, that's cool.
I was a huge fan of
Yeah.
Kiss, the guys with the paint on their faces. And then I was listening to their
Oh yeah.
music over and over and over, and I was like learning the guitar solos whistling. That was my thing. It's funny.
That's cool.
Yes, and then when I was like 14 years old, the whole movement of rock en español, rock in Spanish, started happening in Latin America, in like Bogotá and Ciudad de Mexico and Buenos Aires and Spain. That was like the first strong hubs of like rock in Spanish were Mexico, Argentina, and Spain. And it was a whole thing for my generation as teenagers too. That now there are bands that play rock music, but we can understand what they're singing about. So then we start a band with my school friends when I was like in ninth grade, and I was the singer.
Hmm.
So I was singing for a good chunk of my high school years mainly. I was the singer of that was pretty much like the first time that I had like the stage experience um, in front of a band with a crowd in front of me, and I was like 14 years old, and it was like life changing. Then I stopped singing because my voice started changing, and there was like this whole idea that if you sing while your voice is changing, then you're gonna ruin your voice. So I stopped singing. Second year of college, when I was like 18 years old, I started playing bass, and that was
Nice.
my main instrument for a long time. It was the bass guitar, and I loved it, and I still love. There's actually three songs in the record that I play bass on.
Cool.
I love to play my bass. And then I went to Cuba in 1998 to study formally music. And the only reason I went there is because it was very good and very cheap at the same time. Like the cost benefit of like studying
Hmm.
music in La Habana was like, as good as it can get. So I spent some years between 98 and 99 in La Habana studying like music theory and solfege and piano. That's when I started playing a little bit of piano, and uh, and then I came back to Colombia in 1999, and I started a project with three other friends playing percussion. So that's when I started playing percussion, playing tambora and playing shakers and playing all. I really got into the rabbit hole of black Latin American music from Cuba and from Colombia and from Brazil. That's when I really started like understanding that whole connection with Africa and understanding how how that music works, how polyrhythms uh, work, how the whole thing about like African rooted music that is a lot of instruments playing very simple patterns, but if you just like play them together, then they create something that is absolutely amazing. And that's when I start like playing percussion. And then in 2000, let me think about it, 2000, that's when I start playing the flutes that I play, the indigenous Colombian flutes that I play,
Nice.
that you can listen all over the record. Um, and playing flutes was like a life changing thing. Like it really changed me as a musician and as a human being, because I was learning from countryside musicians that I think are the most amazing musicians that you can find. They didn't go to college. They can read music. Some of them can even read language, books. Read. A lot of
Right.
those like old guys from countryside Latin America are like illiterate. That's the way you say it, illiterate.
Right.
but
Yeah, can't read.
there.
This is Jeff. I'd like to take a second and tell you about this channel. I really encourage you to hit the subscribe button. This really helps out the channel, helps it grow. And also, if you can like and put your comments for this video, that'd so much be appreciated. This really helps me to continue to book amazing artists that hopefully inspire you and continue to grow this channel.
Of their music, the way they approach the instrument, it's just like amazing. So I learned from guys that at that time were like 70 years old, and they were the carriers of like a very ancestral, probably 100, 200, 300 years old tradition. That is the tradition of the Colombian gaita. That is the instrument that I mainly play, um, that I play. Then, before moving to Austin in 2016, I there's like a friend of mine that builds instruments, and then we thought about like putting like a mouthpiece of creating a mouthpiece of a Colombian gaita and put it into like a European traverse flute. Uh, and
Right.
then that's the other instrument that you can hear in the record a lot. It's basically a hybrid of indigenous Colombian and European. So it has the mouthpiece of 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 an Colombian indigenous flute, but it has the body of a European flute, and that's really my main instrument right now in Austin is that flute.
Sounds interesting. So I guess you made like a hybrid because it's the playability, right? The European portion of it maybe is, easier to control, but you still have the body of the indigenous flute to keep the sound consistent, right?
Because the thing is that
Yeah.
the indigenous flute is what we call in music diatonic. So out of the 12 notes, you only have seven. So you only can play certain keys with those flutes.
Mm,
But all of those like traditional flutes, all of those like six hole flutes are diatonic. So you only can play certain
wow.
keys. You only can play certain scales. Uh, the genius of the Europeans was to create instruments where you can play all the 12 notes of the system. So you can
Right.
basically play any key. So because a lot of times I was kind of like, as a musician, you get to the jams and you instantly want to go and play your instrument. But then if whatever people was playing wasn't in the key that I was able to play on my flute, then it was impossible. So now that I have this hybrid that has the European body and has the Colombian indigenous mouthpiece, I can just basically play
Hmm.
any of the 12 keys.
That's
Yes, super
awesome.
fun.
That is so cool. I find that so interesting, and I really wanted to ask you about that. The flute. It's called you said the Colombian guta. Is that how you say it?
Gaita, gaita. Now the hybrid that I create,
Nice.
I just like change the I for a U, gauta, because we
Gotcha.
flute in Spanish is flauta. That's the way we say flute in
So,
Spanish is flauta. So if you just like
Plata.
blend gaita and flauta, then it's like gauta, and that's the way people know the instrument nowadays. And there's a whole trend now. This is in the last 8 years. I just like talk with my friend that builds the mouthpieces for me, and I was asking like how many mouthpieces have you done since we start this, because when we made the mouthpiece for me, it was like a prototype. And he
Right.
told me that he's making 10 20 gauta heads, and there's a lot of people that play the European instrument that now is trying to put the mouthpiece. So there's a whole trend.
You were the first.
Not the first, because there's a guy, I can't remember his name, Arlington Pardo, something like that, from the Colombian coast, that he already did it years back. But I'm kind of like bringing it to
Oh,
the
okay.
mainstream in a way. He created it, but he didn't really do much with it. Uh, But I did it, and I came to Austin, and I started playing that. Every single time that I played that flute in concerts, there's someone coming and saying like, what's happening? Please, I mean, I
Yeah.
have flute players, clarinet players, musicians that come like, what is that instrument that you play?
Yeah.
And then
It
I just
stands
like,
out.
yes, totally, totally.
It stands out, and that's the thing. I could hear the like you said, the indigenous feel to it, but yet you're blending it with all these styles with soul, funk, bossa nova. It's so cool. I mean, was that how do you blend your styles so seamlessly?
I think that every music is fusion. Every single music is
Sure.
fusion. For me, it's
This is
like
true.
it's the natural organic thing. You are a musician, so you have sensitive ears, and then if you are open-minded, then you don't only listen certain kind of music, but you listen. I mean, I fell in love with Colombian music when I was on my 20s, but before that, I heard all kinds of like rock music and R&B and funk and soul. So
Hmm.
it it is there, and then you start just like putting other stuff. Then I learned about Fela Kuti, and I became like a huge fan of like Afrobeat, but I've been a huge fan of jazz at the same time, and I love that whole freedom that comes with jazz, and that whole like improvisational aspect of jazz. But I just love music from everywhere. I love music from Africa. I mean, African music is all over the record. You can feel it on the grooves, on the drums, on the kind of drums that we're playing, on the rhythmic patterns that we're playing, uh, and it's natural that all of that blends in your spirit and in your brain, and then whenever you express yourself, that's what comes. So that's pretty much the
That's
way I
cool.
could like explain that. Yes.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I think, and you're right. Anytime you're playing any kind of music, there is a fusion for anything. I mean, even thinking about rock and roll is a fusion that was really developed over time. Jazz was, there's a evolution of it, and I totally hear what you're saying. I mean, it all music really has some kind of blend, and that's really cool how you see it that way. And tell me about like when the bands that you have that you put together. How do you assemble the bands with the percussion and everything together? I mean, how do you team up with really good musicians to play with?
Well, I came on 2016, and I instantly connect with the collective of Colombian musicians in Austin. Musicians that have been in Austin for years, you know, that
Nice.
they already knew the other people that was like doing kind of like something along the lines of like Latin alternative, kind of like world music, if you want. There's like a
Hmm.
really important band in Austin called Grupo Fantasma. I don't know if you've heard about them.
Nice.
Grupo
No,
Fantasma.
sounds cool though.
Grupo Fantasma, it's really the pioneers. They are really a pioneers of the Latin alternative move in Austin.
Oh,
They just turned 25 years this year. So they start like, I think their first year was 2000, and they were really the first ones that brought the cumbia sound to Austin, and the Cuban sound to Austin, and they start like blending it with like funk and with Afrobeat, and they are Grammy winners, by the way. Uh,
nice, nice.
I don't know if you're aware of Black Pumas.
Oh,
Oh yeah, for sure.
The producer, guitar player for Black Pumas, Adrian Quesada, is one of the founders of Grupo Fantasma.
That's great. That's great how you found those connections.
So it all starts because they brought the cumbia sound to Austin when nobody was playing that music in Austin, and then they were hugely inspired by Colombian music, but there were no Colombian musicians in Austin. So then I think something like 10 years back or maybe more, this guy called Kiko Villamizar, he moved to Austin and he had Colombian roots, and he was kind of like one of the pioneers of Colombian music in Austin, and and then I came in 2016, and then around around kind of like me, all of these kind of like collective of Colombian musicians kind of like consolidate. And then, of course, Grupo Fantasma, they are hugely influenced by Colombian music. So now there are Colombian musicians in town. So they kind of like got us under their wings. And now we are basically like, yeah, like brothers, you know? They're like the Grupo Fantasma drummer and keyboard player and guitar player, they all record in the vessel in my album, plus other Colombian musicians that are like part of the scene. It's the vessel. It's basically like a celebration of that extended family, of that collective of like-minded musicians with a deep, deep understanding and love for African-rooted music.
So tell me about that. What was it like making the record? Is it something that you started, that you had a handful of songs ready to go, or did you do them one by one? What was that process like?
In all of these years that I've been in Austin, every single time that I find a musician that I love, I want to make music with him. I say that musicians we fall in love with each other on a very powerful, pure, and unique way. Like you hear someone creating great sound and you just like fall in love and you wanna make music with that person. So,
Right.
you know, but then everybody's working, everybody has playing in 2 or 3 bands, everybody has like side jobs, everybody's like overworked. You know, it's hard to put people together if there's no money. You know, nobody is in the capacity of like giving up their time, pretty much. You know,
Yeah.
so I just like applied for a grant, for a city grant, and I got it. And then I was like,
Oh, cool.
what I'm gonna do with this money is I'm gonna pay all the musicians that I love for their time, so we can get together and make a record. And
Yeah.
then
And something that's sitting in your computer for 10 years. Is it hard to finish it if it's been sitting there? Like how do you get back into that groove, or do you change it? Like what do you do with something like that?
no, a lot of the times it's just demos. You know, it's like you have a melody line, and then you put some chords, and then you put a rhythm, and that's it. It's like a sketch.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is my opportunity to just like turn these sketches into like, songs. And
Right.
and then I just like start like calling them and just like saying, hey, I'm thinking about like making this record. How's your schedule? So what I end up doing is like overlapping 18 schedules, and then creating chunks on a week, 5-day weeks, let's say 6-day week, because we record Monday through Saturday. I was like, okay, so who
Mm-hmm.
can record on the morning session on Monday? And whomever was able to do it on Monday, that's the people that I'm gonna. And then I just like did that for the 6 days, and then we made 2 great rehearsals on a place here in Austin that is called Purple Bee, and
Uh-huh.
and then we basically rehearse in 2 days and then record in 6 days, pretty much. And
Oh,
then every,
whoa.
2 days rehearsal and then record right after.
it wasn't right after. It was like rehearsals were kind of like in mid-March 2024, and then the recording was the last week of April 2024. But it was like,
Okay.
the way records used to be made on the 70s. It's like, we had like
Live.
Live.
everybody on the same space, breathing the same air, no click track. Everybody's bleeding through everything's bleeding through. I remember that Beto, that is the recording engineer and producer and owner of the studio. We had a conversation the week before, and he was like, I'm concerned because the way you want to do this, everything is gonna bleed through all the mics. And then I told him, great, let it bleed. That's what I told him. There's a Rolling Stone song that is called Let It Bleed. There's a whole record, Rolling Stone record, that is called Let It Bleed. And I was like, that's it. That's the way jazz records were recorded on the 50s and the 60s. You know, everybody on the same space. Everything's coming. Every mic is a room mic, pretty much. Every mic is a room.
Tell everybody, like, what's the difference, because I think especially the new cats coming up, they don't understand because they've grown up with, you know, Logic and Pro Tools and, you know, track here. What's the difference between recording multi-track, one track at a time, or completely separate, versus, like you're saying, the jazz records of the 50s and 60s where you guys are all in a room? What's the difference in the feel and the sound?
Well, it used to be that you record with two mics, left and right. You know, those like Celia Cruz records from the 50s and the 60s. It was like, so then you have to put the singer as close as possible to the mics, and then you have the rest of the band behind, and that's it. Two tracks, left and right. Then Beatles were recording 4 tracks. But then they were like recording 4 tracks and then bouncing to 1, and then they have 3 tracks, and then they bounce to 2, and then that's the technique that they were using. There's a great album from the Rolling Stones that I really like, that it was like a reference for the vessel, that is Exile on Main Street. And that was recorded 8 tracks on the basement on a French mansion in 1970, pretty much. And it was basically like that. It was like 8 tracks. You put probably 2 mics on the drums, and then you put, you have like 1 DI for the bass, and then you have guitar amps with mics, and that's it. That's basically what we did in Leche House. When then boards start like getting bigger, and then they start like putting isolations on the studios, because then it was easier to mix. If you have the instruments kind of like isolated somehow, then you can control more the instrument. And then digital technology came, and then basically you can just like, that technique that you're talking about is basically collage. So you have like a drum track, and then you bring the bass, and that bass records on top of the drums, and then you have drums and bass, and you start like making the puzzle one piece at a time, compared to just like everything happening at the same time.
But having everything at the same time has so much more soul to it, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I'm 100%. And you can listen to the vessel, and you can really feel that everybody is on the same space, breathing the same air, feeling, seeing the faces that the other people is enjoying, Now, I gotta say that core part of the music we did all at once, but then we do overdubs on top of that.
Yeah.
We overdub some.
Of course.
If you listen, there's some Colombian marimba in some of the tracks that was overdubbed. But yes, mainly we just like record all at once.
Yeah, and when you're doing the overdubs, I mean, when do you know the song is done? Like, it's, you've completed it, no more overdubs, it's time for mixing. When do you know you've done enough for the song?
No, I really have like a really, really kind of like clear idea of like, for this song, I want to have this and this and that. And then we just like schedule time in the studio, and then we just like invite the musicians, and then we just like overdub with the main mix on the headphones. And then, but from the get-go, I didn't want to have like an overproduced. I feel like overproduction, it's time. I mean,
too much.
It's too much. That's the thing. Like, when it's overproduced, it starts sounding like AI. And I feel like at this point,
That's true.
the more we can distance ourselves as musicians from AI, the better. So I listen to some of those like weekend records or those
Hmm.
like pop, those like mainstream pop records, and they
Hmm.
sound like AI. They don't sound, they don't sound like created by real humans. Even the human voice
Sounds like a
is
computer.
so overprocessed, so much effects, so much stuff that I honestly I'm over that aesthetic. I'm really want to go back to raw, pure, organic human sound. That's what I want.
Love it. I totally agree. I think, yeah, sometimes the music of today, although some of it sounds interesting, but I think it can be too kind of computerized. And like you said, it's almost too, everything sounds too similar. There's not much uniqueness. And we as humans are unique just by being human beings. And so when it's left to us instead of all these computer softwares and plugins, it's better. It's natural.
That's really a sound that I'm looking for, and I don't want to make records in any other way. The only record that I would do as collage, that is basically a technique. I really want to make a record with all my buddies in Bogotá that I love, amazing musicians in Bogotá, and the only way to make create records remotely, it's like that, So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's I actually during pandemic I record a couple of songs like that. I just record the melody and I send that melody to a friend to put chords, and then I send that to a friend in New York to put another guitar, and then I send that to a friend in Bogota to play some bass. If you go to my Bandcamp, there's a couple of songs that were created like that remotely.
I was listening to your Bandcamp. Yeah, I really like the music on there as well. That's cool that you were able to trade files, and you seem to be able to organize very well. That's But tell me, what is it about Colombia that just has so much music talent? And I'm no expert, but just off the top of my head, Super Litio, Carlos Vives, Juanes, Shakira. I mean, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. What is it about Colombia that's just magic when it comes to music?
Because if you see Colombia, it's like right on the north. There's kind of like a summary
Hmm.
of South America on a way. Like we have the Andes, but we have the Amazon, but we have the Mato Grosso, we have the Llanos, but we have the Caribbean, but we have the Pacific coast. It's kind of like five countries in one, pretty much. And each of those
Oh,
countries has like a very special, unique kind of like sound instrumentation. Like you go to the Pacific coast and they have, it sounds very African. It has the marimba and it has the hand drums and the bass drums. You go to the Caribbean, that is basically the door through the door that basically Caribbean was the door, the the gate
yeah.
of Colombia. So you have a crazy blend of like indigenous with African, with Spaniard, with German. Actually, the accordion that you hear on the Carlos Vives records is German. That's not
Yes.
that's not Colombian.
Yeah.
That's German. And then you have all the Syrian and Lebanese people that came. So they're like, we call them Turcos in Colombia, and then they brought all their like cuisine, and their it's insane. And then you go to the Amazon, and of course there's a whole universe of like indigenous ancestral stuff there, and then you go to the Andes, to the mountains, and then there's a lot of Spaniard. Uh, I don't know. It's just like so diverse. And then the thing with the war that went through like 50 years in Colombia, what happened is a lot of people from those regions start like going to the main cities, and then you have projects in Colombia where you have like a drummer that comes from the Caribbean coast, but then you have like a singer that comes from the Pacific coast, but then the drummer is from Bogota and has all the rock, on if you listen to the Carlos Vives records, there's like a whole rock and roll thing there that you can really feel it. So I don't know, and I feel like all the struggle and all the conflict and all of sometimes those places that go through all of those like really harsh times end up creating the best art, because it's like a survival thing, I think.
Interesting. And I think that you described it so amazing. It is kind of where its geography located. It's a mix of all these different things because there's many different sides to it. That's so, I find that so interesting. And back to the indigenous part of it, is that where you learned the flute was like the Amazon part of the Colombia?
No, Caribbean coast, because
Okay.
there are indigenous people all over the country. There are like 60 something survival indigenous tribes, and some of those tribes are really keeping their ways, and they're keeping their language. Like indigenous cultures in Colombia are very alive.
Right. They've kept it going this whole time. It's the modern world has not separated them or slowed down the culture.
It's inevitable, but they still speak their language, dress the way the way they've been dressing for hundreds of years. They still play their music, So I feel like that's a big part of it.
I find that so interesting. In the flute, music from that. I mean, what can you tell us about, the connection to that indigenous community? I mean, is there a certain meaning behind the flute as a part of their culture, like what it means to them?
For the people that is still like 100% indigenous, the flute is all about healing. That's the way they were like healing. Yes. When people was like depressed or when people was like very sad, they used to get them inside the malocas, the mamos, the shamans, and just play the flutes for hours to kind of like musical therapy, without all the Western crap, like really healing with the vibration, with the melodies, with the music.
Because when I'm listening to your songs like Azul and Fading Life and some of the ones on the Bandcamp, it's like with the flute I do feel kind of like this hypnotic spiritual thing that's taking over, but it's beyond the music. It's like this additional thing, right? Is
countryside musicians to the traditional musicians that I learned from, it's like the time stops when they play.
Oh, tell me about Azul. I think that's the one where you have your amazing whistling and you've got that bossa nova feel. I mean, how'd you put that together?
Once again, one of those melodies that just came. I mean, it's hard for me to claim the melodies as mine because they just come. I don't need, I mean, sometimes I don't. I guess you are. I mean, Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones have a beautiful way to put it. It's like you become like an antenna, like an. You know what I mean? And then, whenever you are not really thinking much about it, melodies come. And then sometimes they come and they go. Sometimes then they come and you like them, but then you forget them. But then sometimes they keep on coming. When a melody keeps on coming, that's when I know that this is a melody that wants to, come out, that wants to go to the universe, pretty much. And then this is one of those melodies, And then one day I was in a studio with a friend, and I start whistling out of nowhere, and he's like, "What is that melody you are whistling there?" It's like, "No, this is a melody that has been like, coming to me over and over." And then he's an amazing guitar player. You can really feel how good he is playing that guitar. And then he was like, let's record this. Let me put some chords on this and let's record this right now. And then we record that in 1 hour. We record. The percussion that you hear there is virtual percussion. It's not real percussion. I think it's like a shaker and a clap.
Wow.
It's like so simple. And then him playing the chords and me whistling. That's me whistling. And that's the way. But I'm telling you, this we record like probably something like 15 years ago, something like that. That could be
Wow.
like easily like
Wow.
like 2010. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And tell me more about the whistling. I find that so interesting. I know you said earlier that that's how you started. You were whistling the solos of Kiss, guitar solos. And how did you develop that? Because I think a lot of singers try to whistle with, sometimes okay, sometimes not so great. I mean, even the classics like, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay with Otis Redding, his short whistling at the end of that is so cool. It's so soulful. Like, how do you develop a nice whistle?
Do it and do it and do it and do it and keep on doing it. I remember my mom used to say, like, he used to tell me, like, I know 5 minutes before you get home that you are coming because I can hear your whistle. So from the moment I was like coming down from the bus and walking to my house, I was whistling. Like so many times I'm just like walking around whistling. Sometimes I don't even realize that I'm whistling and I'm whistling. For me, it's just like breathing.
Yeah.
People get surprised about my whistling and they're like, how can you be so good whistling? And I'm like, for me, it's just like things come through my ears and then go out through my whistle. I mean, it's basically is the instrument that I know better than any other instrument. It's the instrument that connects with my mind and my soul like instantly. It's like insane.
Tons of melodies from it, and then either whistle it or take it to the flute or something else.
Right?
Yes. If I show you my phone, it's full of like voice memos with whistle songs.
Because it's so many times, and you're in a creative space, and you have this amazing melody, and you're like, man, and you know how it goes as a musician. You hear the whole song, as far as like you hear the band playing and everything, and you're like, man, okay, I know how the drums are gonna be. I know that you put the keys here. How do you maintain that when you record it and you finally take it to the studio, trying to keep it to its original form, or do you just pick it up as best you can later? Like, you know what I mean? How do you keep it to the original vision, or do you just say, hey, let's just take a right turn and go somewhere else?
Great thing about like working with great musicians is that you can 100% trust what they're listening on their heads. And I always like, you have like an idea of like how things should go, but then somebody else is listening something different, and that's kind of like the beauty of this, So unless the musicians that I'm working with are like taking a really, really different approach from what I'm listening in my head, I just like let it go. That's what I told them from the get-go. Like, I 100% trust whatever you listen on your head, based on what I'm bringing. Look, your input is completely valuable. I'm not gonna micromanage anything, and I feel like keeping it loose and keeping it like relaxed and allowing the people to like express themselves and bring their opinions was like a big part of this record sounding the way it sounds.
Now, I think it's so interesting how you had the multiple schedules, and you're like, okay, who can make it on this day? We're going to have you come in. And that's an amazing thing, because, I know a lot of music artists have a hard time being in the creative zone, but in the logic zone. I mean, how do you balance that? Because sometimes it's hard to live in both worlds, but to be, the business side, you're taking care of business, making sure you're scheduling everybody at the studio, and then also getting into that creative space. How do you handle doing both at the same time?
So I went to college for engineering, and I feel like that I can say that because that's the producer, you know, that's the producer part of it. You're producing, you are
Yes.
organizing, you are, you know, putting people together. So I feel like as much as I'm a creative, and my wife complains all the time that I'm in La La Land, that's what she tells me. Where are you?
In the
She's
clouds. In
she's
the
always
clouds.
like bringing me back, like, hey, where are you?
Come back
uh,
down.
there there's still a part of my brain that is very organized and strategic, and like, you know, this is where I want to go, this is where I am, this is where I want to get, what I need to do to get there. So I feel like making use of that part of my brain was like very helpful. And it's funny because a lot of my friends in the musicians community in Austin, they know more that other, you know, crazy creative in the clouds, Jaime. But then when I just like start like organizing and producing this, they were like, "What?" They were kind of like surprised that was I was being able to pull it out. But it happened, and everybody's been so like thankful about like me kind of like creating this space for everybody to get together around this music, that it just like makes me extremely happy.
That's great. That's you explained it so well too, and that's very inspiring. And then, you know, take us through. You record the record, and then of course you play it live. What are the things that you try to do? You know, you've recorded a song, and it's been in the studio, but you may or may not have played it out live. What's that experience of recording in the studio and then taking it to life on stage?
It's like a whole it's like a whole circle, because when we rehearse it, it was just like me basically bringing melodies on paper and maybe some like chord charts, you know, and then rehearsing that in those 2 days. It was like 5 hour rehearsal, so it was like 10 hours of rehearsal, basically 1 hour per song. So it's crazy, but what you hear in the
Oh,
record, each of those songs we rehearse for 1 hour and then record for 3 hours.
wow.
So then
Wow.
we finished the record with Beto like in the end of 2024. Then I had a baby on January 2nd of 2025.
Oh,
I have a
congratulations.
I have a four
Congrats.
months I have a 4 months old baby. My fourth child. I have a 5 years old, and I have a 17 years old and a 20 years old.
Nice.
So then I
Nice.
got everybody together in the same place that we rehearse for like a listening party, and that's when I
Hmm.
shared the record with everybody, and everybody was like super happy about the final product. And then I start like thinking about the release party, and that's what we're gonna do on May 24th.
That is awesome.
So tell me, what else is on the horizon for you in 2025?
2025, basically, I don't know if you're aware of Superfónicos, my other project.
Yeah, you tell me. Tell me more about that.
Superfónicos is like my main project, like my main band. Uh, I co-write a lot of the songs with the bass player of Superfónicos, and we you know, we are a well-established band in Austin, and stuff keeps on coming all the time. So basically, keep on playing with Superfónicos. Uh, I don't know what's gonna happen with this record. I don't know. Uh, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, this record is gonna come out in May. I'm gonna push it as much as I can. I would love to bring this music to the living. One of the things that I really want to do is uh, take the music back to the house, to the way it used to be years back. You know, uh, there was like music on the
Hmm.
juke joints and on the clubs, but there was like musicians going to the houses of the people to like make the music in the living, pretty much. So I
House
wanna,
party.
I house parties. Even though this is
Hmm.
not really party music, this is more like lounge. You know, this
Yeah.
is this. Let's say this is the more lounge part of my repertoire. You listen to the Superfónicos, it's party. You're gonna
Party time.
check check it out. It's party time. Shake your booty. It's like, it's so we're going to do that, and then let's see what happens. And then I have a nonprofit called Feeding Souls that we're basically bringing music to the schools during lunch. We're bringing live music to the kids while they have lunch in the schools in Austin. That's my other main project. Yes.
Thank you so much. It was an honor and a privilege, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from you. And thank you so much.
Take care. Have fun.